Hey, my name's Jasmine, and I also go by Proud Mom. No, I'm not going to literally read the Bible to y'all, um, but I am going to read some Bible stories for whoever comes across this live and finds my voice relaxing enough to listen to while they fall asleep or meditate or go on about their day. Okay? So, the Bible. Most of the events of the Old Testament take place in a small area to the east of the Mediterranean Sea. From ancient times, people have lived and traveled along a strip of land known as the Fertile Crescent, which stretches from Egypt through Canaan and Mesopotamia to Babylonia. There was enough water in this area to enable them to grow crops and graze animals. Many great civilizations have thrived here, and down the centuries, there has been much fighting to control the land. Why did you decide to come watch a movie while when I first started reading my book, though? But I'm reading a book on YouTube. I don't want to watch this. Why? Because I'm reading. I had started reading a book because you left out. Yeah, no, it's not all. You supposed to be eating that downstairs anyway. Take those back downstairs. Come back up when you're done. No, sharing with me isn't going to change that rule. Nice try, though. Go eat those downstairs, and then when you come back. Share. Well, you don't have to offer to share with me again. Canaan, the promised land, where the Israelites flourished, is only about 150 miles from north to south. It contains many different types of scenery, including plains and river valleys, suitable for farming, lakes, hills, and rocky desert. The highest mountains are over 3,280 feet, which is 1,000 meters high. The lowest point at the Dead Sea is 1,300 feet, 400 meters below sea level. The vegetation of Canaan in biblical times would have been different in many ways from that found today. When the Israelites entered Canaan, much of the hilly ground was covered by woods and forests. Poplar, oak, and sycamore trees. Since then, many of these have disappeared, cut down, and used for building and fuel. In recent years, however, trees have been planted in several areas, and there are intensive irrigation projects underway to encourage the desert to blossom as the rose, as mentioned in Isaiah chapter 35. In one important way, the people of Israel, aka the Hebrews, were different from others. Instead of many gods, they believed that there was only one God, a divine God. The Bible tells how God made this special promise or covenant with Abraham and his descendants, the people of Israel. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you to be your God. On Mount Sinai, God gave to Moses the main laws which the people were to follow. These 10 commandments, as they are called, are about ways of honoring God and treating others. There were also laws or rules covering many aspects of daily life, from marriage to owning property. The Israelites believed that you could worship God not just in prayers and services, but by the way you lived your daily life. Now we're going to read about the Ark of the Covenant. The Ten Commandments were written on 2 pieces of stone and were very precious to the Israelites. They kept them in a golden box called the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was also important to them because it reminded them of God's covenant that He would be with them. Because the people of Israel spent many years traveling before they found a place to settle, they made a portable tent or tabernacle, which they could set up anywhere. The ark was kept in this tent, and in the area around it, sacrifices and prayers were made each day to God. This was the most important place of worship for the Israelites. The tabernacle measured 45 feet, which is 14 meters long, 13 feet, 4 meters wide, and 16 feet, 5 meters high. It was made of a wooden frame and covered with rich linen material in blue, purple, and scarlet. Over this were waterproof coverings. Inside the tabernacle was divided into 2 rooms. The smaller of these was called the most holy place, or the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest was allowed into it, and that was only once a year on the Day of Atonement. It was in this room that the Ark of the Covenant was kept. In the other larger room was a bronze altar on which incense was burned each morning and evening. There were also a 7-branched gold lampstand called a menorah and a gold table on which once a week 12 loaves of bread were placed, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The tabernacle stood in a courtyard that was 54 yards, 50 meters long, and 27 yards, 25 meters wide. Here on a large altar, the priests burned animal sacrifices in their worship of God. Before the priest entered the tabernacle or offered a sacrifice, they washed their hands in a basin called a laver. Rest in peace to all those animals. Many years later, when the people of Israel were no longer traveling all the time, King David decided to build a temple in Jerusalem where the Ark of the Covenant could be kept and God could be worshiped. It was David's son Solomon who ordered the temple to be built along the lines of the tabernacle. When it was finished, King Solomon led a grand service to dedicate the temple to God. A second temple replaced Solomon's in 515 BC, but the last temple was built by King Herod the Great about 9 BC. This was much bigger and grander than the previous ones. It was destroyed by the Romans in AD 70. Herod's temple had several extra courtyards in addition to the one for priests. These were the court of women, the nearest that women could go to the Holy of Holies, and the court of the Gentiles, the nearest people who were not Jews could go. Although there were prayers and sacrifices every day, the temple was especially full at religious festivals. Often psalms were sung by people as they went to the temple. Let's get into the creation. Genesis 1 through 2. The creation. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Water lay deep over the surface of the earth, and the darkness was absolute. God said, "Let there be light," and suddenly there was light, and God saw that it was good. God divided the light, which was day, from the darkness, which was night, and so ended the first day and night of creation. Next, God said, "Let there be sky over the waters," and called the sky heaven, and this was on the second day. On the third day, the land rose up through the waters, and God called the dry land earth, and the waters sea. At once, grasses took root on the earth, and every kind of plant. Buds opened, seeds sprouted, and trees grew heavy with fruit, and God saw that it was good. On the fourth day, God said, there must be lights in the sky to divide night from day and to mark the seasons. There are some animals denying their owners at this time. I don't feel bad for anybody who animal decided to beat your ass at your own game, excuse me. So at anywho, on the fourth day, God said there must be lights in the sky to divide night from day and to mark the seasons. For this, God created two lights, the greater which he called the sun to shine over the day, and the smaller, the moon, to shine at night. Around the moon, God set the stars. On the fifth day, God created all the creatures of the sea and sky. Birds flew through the air, while in the watery depths, great fish swam silently. On the sixth day, God made all the animals, from the wild beasts of desert and jungle to cattle grazing in the fields, and God saw that it was good. And God said, I shall make people in my own image to rule over them. And so God created people, both male and female, in God's own likeness. And that was on the morning and the evening of the sixth day. On the seventh day, God rested, for the work was done and all was well with the world. Genesis 2:3. In the east, in Eden, the Garden of Eden, God made a garden in which grew every tree and plant, and at the very center stood the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. God put the man into the garden, telling him he might eat any fruit he wished, except from the tree of knowledge, for if he were to eat that, he would die. God brought to the man Adam all the animals so that he might name them. God then sent Adam into a deep sleep, and while he slept, took one of his ribs, and out of it made a woman, so that Adam would have a wife. Both Adam and Eve, his wife, walked naked and happy in the garden and had no need of clothes. Now the serpent, which are also snakes, the most devious of all living creatures, questioned Eve. I think that sentence right there is a opinion and not a fact. I think there are more devious creatures than snakes. I'm gonna just put that out there. But so now the serpent, the most devious of all living creatures, questioned Eve, asking her if she could eat any fruit she pleased. Yes, she said, any fruit except that from the tree of knowledge. If we eat that, we die. But you will not die, said the serpent. Instead, you will discover the difference between good and evil, and so will be equal with God. The woman gazed at the tree and was tempted by the juicy fruit that would make her wise. She picked one and ate it, gave one to her husband, and he ate it. As they looked at each other, they became aware of their nakedness. They quickly gathered some fig leaves, which they sewed together to cover themselves. In the cool of the evening, they heard the voice of the Lord as God walked in the garden, and they hid so that God would not see them. God called to Adam, Adam, where are you? Adam said, I heard your voice and I was afraid, so I hid. If you are afraid, then I know you must have eaten from the tree whose fruit I told you not to eat. It was the woman who gave me the fruit. And Eve said, it was the serpent who tempted and deceived me. Then God cursed the serpent and banished him from the garden. He gave clothes to Adam and Eve, saying, now that you both know good and evil, you must leave Eden. You cannot stay for fear you might eat also from the tree of life, and if you did that, you would live forever. And God drove them out of the garden and into the world. At the east of Eden, he stationed cherubim and placed a flaming sword to guard the entrance to the garden and to the tree of life. Cherubim were often represented as wing sphinxes or human-headed lions. Many Assyrian ivory have carvings. In the book of Genesis, cherubim act as God's attendants. They guard the tree of life, which is the symbol of eternal life. Genesis 4, Cain and Abel. Abel is a shepherd and Cain works in the fields. Excuse me. Eve gave birth to 2 sons. Abel the younger was a shepherd while his brother Cain worked in the fields. There came a time when they both made offerings to God. Cain from his crops, which was wheat, lentils, almonds, pistachio nuts, olives, figs, and grapes. And Abel from the finest and fattest of his flock. God was well pleased with Abel's offering, but not with Cain's. This made Cain very angry, and his face darkened with rage. Why are you angry? The Lord God asked him. You will succeed if you work hard, and if you do not, the sin will be yours. But Cain was not soothed by these words. He followed his brother into the fields, and there attacked and murdered him. Cain, where is your brother? Asked the Lord. I do not know, Cain replied. Am I my brother's keeper? But God knew what had happened. Cain, what have you done? I see your brother's blood staining the earth. Now you are cursed, cursed to wander the world, an outcast from man and God. This punishment is greater than I can bear, cried Cain in agony. You, my God, are going to turn your face away from me and condemn me to wander the world, to be killed by anyone who passes me on the road. But the Lord reassured him. The man who kills Cain will bring upon himself a terrible punishment. And God made a mark on Cain so that everyone would recognize him. And when they saw the mark, they know that they must leave him unharmed. With a heavy heart, Cain departed and went to live in the land of Nod, which lies to the east of Eden. That mark was on his forehead. Abel would have spent all day leading his flock of sheep to good pastures and keeping them from harm. Sheep provided meat, milk, wool, and skins, and the fattest were the perfect lambs always offered to God. Interesting. So Cain killed Abel because that sheep was better than the wheat. Interesting. Genesis 6-7, Noah's Ark. As the years passed, the descendants of Adam grew in number and spread to the 4 corners of the earth. But as they grew in number, so they grew in wickedness. And God, seeing violence and corruption everywhere, decided to destroy all the people and animals that had been created. There was, however, one man whom the Lord loved, a good man who led an honest and hard-working life. His name was Noah, and God chose to save him and to save also Noah's wife and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. The world has grown wicked, God told Noah, and I intend to destroy every living thing that I have made. But you, Noah, you and your family shall be saved. I shall cause a flood to rise over the land, and you must build an ark out of cypress wood that will float on the waters. It must be roofed with reeds and coated outside and in with tar. It must measure 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It shall have 3 stories with a door and a window in the side. In it, you must make room.
Mommy.
Yes. Who in the loft? In it, you must make room for yourself and your family, and two, one male, one female, of every kind of creature, every kind of beast, reptile, and bird. And you must fill it with enough food for them and for yourselves, for it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and life on earth will be extinct. Noah did exactly as God had told him. He and his sons built the ark, making it watertight and stocking it with plenty of food of every variety for man and beast. I'm going to finish this page, and then that's going to be it, because I obviously got to go tame her. When everything was ready, they led all the animals into the ark. Then they themselves went inside, and God shut fast the door. The skies darkened, and it began to rain. So I'm going to leave off our Bible study for today with two verses. Genesis 6:18. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thy and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And then Genesis 7:9. There went into unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. And also, by the way, the traditional method of boat building is still practiced in them parts of the Middle East. Bye, you guys.